So the resistance walked into the Oval Office today, sat down on a sofa, and trumped Trump. The two members of the resistance in the Oval Office today who outsmarted the president were Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Watching the president make the worst deal he could possibly have made in that room today was a group of stunned Republicans, including the congressional leadership, the president's own Treasury Secretary, and his vice president. White House staffers apologized to the Republicans as they were leaving for the truly horrible deal for Republicans that Donald Trump accepted. He did not negotiate the deal. He simply accepted the first offer made by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Remember all those campaign speeches when Donald Trump told his supporters he wouldn't even try to negotiate with his opponents in Congress because it was easier just to sit there and accept whatever his opponents wanted? No, I don't remember those speeches either. I remember this.
So, I've watched the politicians. I've dealt with them all my life. If you can't make a good deal with a politician, then there's something wrong with you. You're certainly not very good. We need a leader that wrote The Art of the Deal.
We tried to tell you. We tried to tell you he didn't know what he was talking about. The Republican leaders were told before the meeting today that the president would support their proposal, which was for an $8 billion Hurricane Harvey relief package coupled with an 18-month extension of the debt ceiling. Chuck Schumer's counteroffer was, okay, on the $8 billion hurricane relief package, which is something Democrats always favor in these situations, and a 3-month, only a 3-month extension of the debt ceiling, to which Donald Trump said, okay, just like that, no negotiating. In Washington negotiations, when one side says 18 months and the other side says 3 months, you're going to end up somewhere around 9 months, unless Donald Trump is in the room, the weakest negotiator in the history of the presidency. Donald Trump now empowered the resistance in Congress to stand in the way of everything the Republicans will be trying to do 3 months from now, including the most important thing that Republicans need to do, cut taxes. That is what congressional Republicans live for. It's one of the very few things they actually know how to do legislatively, cut taxes. They're calling it tax reform, but this time, but it isn't. It's just a giant tax cut. That's what Republicans want to do, and they're not close to being ready to do it. That's why the Republicans needed 18 months of breathing room on the debt ceiling so they could work among themselves on their favorite thing, cutting taxes. Republicans' least favorite thing to do is raise the debt ceiling. One unnamed House Republican said today, that's the most toxic vote you could have around here. Donald Trump made sure today that Republicans are going to have that toxic vote twice within 90 days. Raising the debt ceiling is always the responsible thing to do, so Republicans prefer to leave that responsibility to Democrats. And Democrats will vote for an increase in the debt ceiling, even with a Republican Congress and a Republican president, but only if the Republican president agrees to whatever the Democratic list of demands is when it comes time to raise the debt ceiling. And assuming the debt deal struck today goes through, that time is coming again in just 3 months. Republicans were shocked. That is an understatement. Senator Ben Sasse released a one-sentence statement. The Pelosi-Schumer-Trump deal is bad. Politico reports that Republican Representative Mike Simpson said, a 3-month debt ceiling? Why not do a daily debt ceiling? The most important lesson of the day for Republicans was delivered by an unnamed House Republican in Politico. It doesn't help our leadership to try to hold us Republicans together on anything when they know the president will chop them off at the knees. On anything. That means the entire Republican legislative agenda is now in serious danger. Democrats have the Republicans and the president exactly where they want them now, and they can't believe it was this easy. Chuck Schumer may be the first minority leader in history to have his first offer to the president of an opposing party accepted without a word of negotiation. What do you think that's going to do to Chuck Schumer's next first offer? He's going to push Trump even harder the next time he has a first offer to make in the Oval Office. He's going to ask for much more. That's what happens when you cave as easily and immediately and completely as Donald Trump did today in the negotiation that never was. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi made their offer public before the meeting began. And here's what Paul Ryan had to say about it before he had to sit there on the sofa across from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and watch Donald Trump just accept it.
I think that's a ridiculous idea. I hope that they don't mean that. Let's just think about this. We've got all this devastation in Texas. We've got another unprecedented hurricane about to hit Florida, and they want to play politics with the debt ceiling? That will strand the aid that we need to bring to these victims of these storms that have occurred or are about to occur. And then they also want to threaten default on our debt. I think that's ridiculous and disgraceful.
Play politics with the debt ceiling. Republicans invented playing politics with the debt ceiling. And the Democrats were not threatening default. They were simply saying, in order to get our votes, this is what you have to agree to. Of course, there would be absolutely no need to get a single Democratic vote if the Republicans could get all of their members to vote for an increase in the debt ceiling. The only reason Paul Ryan needs Nancy Pelosi's votes to pass a debt ceiling increase in the House is that Paul Ryan's own Republican members always play politics with the debt ceiling, always. After the meeting, Mitch McConnell made it clear he had nothing to do with this deal.
The president and the Senate and House Democratic leadership agreed to a 3-month continuing resolution and a debt ceiling into December. I will be adding that as an amendment to the flood relief bill that's come over from the House on the floor, and I'll be supporting it.
And that was Mitch McConnell's formal, public surrender today to Chuck Schumer in the Senate. And the most ignorant man in the Oval Office when the deal was made today had this to say.
We had a great meeting with Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and the whole Republican leadership group. And I'll tell you what, we walked out of there, Mitch and Paul and everybody, Kevin, and we walked out and everybody was happy. Not too happy, because you can never be too happy, but they were happy enough.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.